Welcome to Fast Five, where our three panelists talk about 5 topics in 7 short minutes. First topic, there was an audit that found the pluses and the minuses of walking around Hagerstown. Ron, what did you think of that one?
I looked at my yard before I left the house with all the weeds and stuff that's grown because of the rain.
Yeah.
And I can see why some of the problem is, but I do think we need to come up with a better solution and not just have paid city staff helping to clean the town up. I think there's enough volunteer organization within the churches that's tax-free, that and other organizations, Rotaries, etc., that do, a mile cleanup on a highway, that they could take charge of some of the things that we have around our beautiful town to help, really make it beautiful. We had a Keep America Beautiful Day years ago, brought people from all over. We need to get back to some of the good old manual labor type work and helping the city, the county, and other people clean up.
Henry?
This is a great town. Where they were traveling, it was kind of our high foot traffic areas. There was a couple things there. I think we had a curb that was in disrepair. Flower box had weeds in it.
Yeah.
We don't have a blight in the area that they walked on, and people felt comfortable. I think that's important versus some other parts of town. People may not feel so comfortable walking around, but we're going in the right direction.
All right, next up, and we've talked about the bay and the health of the bay before. The bay's deepest water is now showing signs of recovery, and we've heard a couple stories about increased plant growth in the bay or algae growth, populations of certain species doing well. Henry, what do you say on that one?
This is a really great report, but then, recently we had the Conewago Dam that was opened up and then, shut down beaches along the bay. So, they need to address that issue. But the positive thing is the algae blooms are being reduced, and because the algae feeds upon the byproduct, the bacteria,
Of nitrate.
And that's what's caused the dead spots in the deep areas of the bay. That's reducing. So our policies of addressing over-fertilization and other runoff into the bay, it's reaping its rewards.
Yeah, as the nitrates and the nitrites reduce and oxygen comes in, getting that oxygen in, it begins to cure itself. And that's what the big thing is and what's happening.
And we surprised the scientists that were doing the survey. They didn't expect to see a recovery. They said it was actually dramatic from analyzing 30
and
years.
it's at a depth, which is another good thing.
Right.
It's not surface, subsurface. It's down into the depths of the bay.
We have Democrats running for county commission. We have Republicans running for county commission, and we have +2. Our 2 independents, John Barr and Bill McKinley, both have received enough signatures to be included on the November ballot. 2 questions on this. Ron, first of all, strategically, is this a good thing to do?
Yeah, they didn't have to run in a primary.
Well, and doesn't it also, there are people, because of our current president, who are not happy with Republicans. There are people who are generally not happy with Republicans. In this community, there are a lot of people that aren't happy with Democrats because we're a very red community. Doesn't this appeal to potentially a large population of voters?
Well, here was something I was really shocked at. John Barr had 1,321 signatures. Of the 1,321, only 1,192 were certified. 129 of his votes were decertified. Mm-hmm. Where on the other hand, Bill McKinley had 1,308, and he had 1,093 that were good. He had 265 decertified, and right now is only 1 or 2 votes over what he's supposed to have. And I was hearing people today say that those 1 or 2 votes there may be asked for a recount as to whether or not he really had the amount of votes because of the significant amount of votes that he lost anyway. Was there more that he could have lost that he wouldn't be on the ballot?
Okay. So interesting, and I have a little bit of background about this. They not only decertify based on individual entries, but they can, there's a sheet that you fill out.
A whole page.
Right. They can decertify a whole page if the solicitor puts a date in that is previous to the date of when somebody signs it. So in other words, if you sign my sheet to be on the ballot and you sign it August 1st, and I date it down at the bottom July 31st, they're going to decertify that whole page. So you lose 5 all at once. And I know for at least one of these candidates that was the case.
Yes.
So, I mean, and that has nothing to do with anybody trying to put in names that aren't accurate. It just has to do with in my mind, almost crazy policy from a checking perspective.
I don't think it's crazy. It's a policy. It's a policy. It's a policy. Harry Jones couldn't run because the Hatch Act said he couldn't run and he wasn't old enough. So he lived with it. In this particular case, it is what it is. This is what you get into when you're required to get the signatures. You have to produce the signatures. I'm surprised they didn't have 500 more signatures than what they did have. I mean, that's not a lot of signatures, 1,032 or 1,050 signatures. That's a minimal amount to what it used to be.
Okay. Henry?
Well, Bill McKinley didn't win the Republican primary last time, so this was a way for him to get on the ballot by just collecting enough signatures, barely to be on. John Barr I was a little surprised with, but at the same point, he may not align with the Republican Party locally that is very conservative versus his personal beliefs. So I understand the reason behind both. It's going to make it interesting. Now 12 candidates that we're splitting up the county's votes for the top 5. Is that going to mean that there's a couple Republicans aren't going to make it? John Barr, I would expect he would probably be strong enough to still carry the votes through because he's,
I think there are a couple Democrats this year that have an interesting story, and we'll get into that at another time. But at any rate, just my opinion. 3 Boonesboro officials resign. Henry, what's up with that?
The town administrator was a little surprised because she hasn't been on the job but for a couple months. Maybe it was just more than what she didn't realize the scope. The real interesting one was the one who was involved with the works down in Boonesboro, the water and sewer. And I think he just resigned out of frustration. He was suggesting upgrades. I don't really know the 10-foot, version of it. I've seen it, essentially like many of us did, from 100 feet back. I think he had frustration in trying to get things that he felt was necessary to improve the community. And he just said enough was enough.
Yeah, well, the very small town politics has really kicked into high gear in Boonesboro the last couple of years. It's quite obvious and it's quite evident, and anyone that's trying to serve in an office and you're constantly ridiculed and badgered and harassed and everything, I can see why you would move on to greener pastures. What that does is allow the new people that's had all the problems to put other people in, solve all the problems, and they live happily ever after.
So sometimes you don't want a yes man in that position, though. You want someone who's going to focus on.
Well, that's what I believe in county government. You don't need somebody always there as a yes person, but you better have a person there that's going to do their homework before they make a lot of comments.
All right, last but not least, our WTF, what the flip side moment is around President Trump. There are some that want to dig up his Hollywood Walk of Fame star. Ron?
I disagree with it. I think his Hall of Fame star should stay, regardless of what he did. There's other people that's done things that's created problems, and I think his Hollywood star should stand.
I didn't realize this, but he actually had to pay to put the Hollywood star in. All the Hollywood stars are paid by the individual that's honored there. Maybe we should charge Donald Trump security detail for, around the star.
There's an idea.
There's an idea. Yes. Maybe the city, or charge admission. So, maybe he could just have mock ones made up and people can take sledgehammers and we can reduce the national debt. Just a thought.
That's all the time we have for tonight. We hope you will like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, email us with your comments and suggestions to feedback@theflipsidetv.com. That's feedback@theflipsidetv.com. And we hope you will join us here again next week for another trip to the flip side.